Merhaba, my name is Haluk Dreskeneli. I would like to present Turkish energy and infrastructure forecast for year 2021. For energy market employees, I'm making predictions for the next year at the end of each year since 2013. These are purely my personal opinions. So we analysts are expected to make predictions for the next year at the end of each year. Economists make predictions. Social scientists make political predictions. Some of these predictions hold, most of them don't. Many things happen during the year that affect the markets. The political preferences of the political administration change. If the election is approaching, pre election optimistic economic and financial political policies come to play. So domestic and foreign politics inevitably steer events differently. It is necessary for all of us to make predictions to manage our business and our investments. Together, we draw a forecast for the next year. We make adjustments to our predictions according to the events that occur during the year. As I was writing this article, things went so far that I had to refresh it many times and to rewrite for yourself. In 2020, we faced unprecedented virus, corona epidemic of the century. So we, 65 plus year olds, were in lockdown at home in spring and autumn for a long time period. We could not go out on the street even if we are protected from corona infection. Due to inactivity, old age diseases such as heart, diabetes, osteoporosis started to hit us. Your writer had a sunny back balcony at home during the day. I had a long conversations with close friends whom I haven't spoken to for a long time, from morning to night. I never miss Zoom meetings if I'm invited. We're at home again, 24 hours, 7 days a week this year. We have no other topics but COVID-19 outbreak to talk about. All domestic and foreign television news channels, all media only talk about coronavirus. Although globally untimely, incorrect policies are applied, late and incomplete decisions are made, and negative comments are made, we are experiencing formations that coincide with the same curve all over the world. The epidemic adjusts everywhere, forcibly pushing decision makers in the right direction. The hard power of the new generation F-35 fighter planes, S-400 missiles, large aircraft carriers, they have no longer needed. Payments to tenders have been postponed due to fear of epidemic. Limited resources were quickly diverted to city hospitals. Half construction was accelerated. In Turkey, Başıbüyük in Istanbul, Başakşehir in Istanbul, on the European side were opened rapidly. In Ankara, Bilkent City Hospital became an expert center on pandemic. Ankara Hacettepe, Ankara Tıp İbn Sina hospitals are specialized in coronavirus treatment. Domestic production of intensive care units, serial production of medical ventilators have been accelerated. Health personnel in need of new hospitals were recruited from the young staff of old hospitals. Family physicians and provincial physicians were employed. City hospitals were built in all provinces. With the weekend curfew, the rate of infection spread over time has been slightly reduced. The herd immunity advantage of the young people population came to play. Land borders have been closed by all countries. Airplane flights are limited. The epidemic in immigrant camps in the south forced the immigrants to return to Syria, to their home country. It was a very important decision to close our borders. In particular, the borders of Iran, Iraq, Syria were very important in terms of stopping the epidemic. It was very dangerous for people infected through Iran and the Middle East to enter our country. On the other hand, we hear that the epidemic has also increased in our neighbors, in Russia, in Bulgaria, Greece, Georgia. The United States unpreparedness for the epidemic and ignorance of the previous president shook the entire system. In Britain, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, French President Macron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the former American President Trump, and even President Putin were quarantined for 14 days in separate times. Russia is just realizing and learning about seriousness of the situation. The corona even defeated the unbreakable stubbornness of the Vatican and other religious institutions. Churches, cathedrals, synagogues, mosques were closed to worship. Saudis even cancelled Hajj and Umrah programs altogether. They don't take anyone to holy places. Due to the need for female health personnel, they removed the requirement for headscarves. In Germany, Angela Merkel took the epidemic in Germany under control with the sensitivity of an academician. Germany, which takes the outbreak forecast report of the 2012 Robert Koch Institute seriously and takes the necessary precautions. They have relatively less casualty than other countries. Germany, which makes the necessary investments in health issues, and they have the high emergency capacity devices ready, they consider to have saved. Germany hardened its rules for the epidemic again towards New Year's Eve. Oil prices have dropped to even 20 US dollars per barrel for a while in the world. Then now it's around 40 to $60 per barrel. Big discounts are expected in natural gas prices indexed to oil prices soon. Coal will no longer be extracted from underground mines so easily. Only limited mechanized unmanned underground mines can operate. Thermal power plants will remain completely idle in the future. Wind, solar, hydro resources, those renewables, they do not require manpower to gain importance. After coronavirus, we will turn to completely renewable energy focused energy resources. Investments will rapidly flow into renewable power plants. Europeans cancelled their summer vacation reservations. Early bookings refunds led hotel and airline companies to bankruptcy. Restaurants, cafes, indoor areas, cinemas, concert halls, they're closed. It will take a long time to open. Even after opening, nobody will go for a long time. Aircraft started to be used only for emergency evacuation and medical equipment transportation. Intercity passenger transportation is almost over. Only food trucks are operating on the highways. This epidemic will probably last 5 to 10 years with repetitive mutations. Eventually, the new normal world will be completely different. We will adopt new habits accustomed to living introverted. Coronavirus epidemic process continues. Staying at home has resumed around the world. There are optimistic political statements, but realistic academic comments say that This process will continue for a long time. Even it gets lighter with new mutated waves every year. Spanish flu of 1918 continued harder in the years following with similarly occurring mutations. Existence of the epidemic is unlike the power of any conventional war weapon. During the coronavirus epidemic process, America's heavy and superior new modern weapons power did not make any sense. Italy, Spain, England are not doing well. It will take a long time for them to recover from epidemic. None of the new generation F-35 fighter aircrafts, S-400 missiles, aircraft carriers, they have no importance. Luxury cars waiting in the parking lot. Private airplanes that don't fly up. They are the idle private villas, unnecessary bodyguards. All this makes no sense. Without using any weapons, all countries were defeated by the virus. Cinemas, opera, concert halls, they're all closed. Streets are empty, nobody's around. In the coronavirus process, pandemic period, it is very useful to review the internal, external, social policies which are paralyzing the global environment. It is necessary to redraw the new normal world relations after COVID 19. The world after coronavirus will be a new brand, new order that we cannot predict right now. In 2020, last year, there was little change in our energy generation compared to the previous year. Our electricity production generation is around 300 plus billion kilowatt hours. Our installed power is 96,000 gigawatt in 2020. Our energy consumption is expected to be announced in August with a peak of 50,000 megawatt. In 2020, our natural gas consumption will be around 50 plus BCM, billion cubic meters. Our lignite production will be around 50 million metric tons. Our hard coal production will be around 2 million metric tons. Our imported coal import will be 30 million metric tons. The relative reduction of production activities in the coronavirus process is reduced the demand for electricity. We do not go to long journeys on highways. We could not, it's because lockdown. Many retirees prefer to spend winter at their seaside cottage or village houses in their hometown. They set up a stove and they have a combi heating, home heating connected. Houses in big cities are crap, open, empty now. The cars waited for months and months in parking lots in front of the door with no action or driving. Petrol, gas consumptions are decreased. The need for more electricity generation was not seen last year due to the COVID 19 outbreak. We observe stagnant electricity generation. We expect less investment or even no investment with very little renewable activity. New investments, environmental equipment, electrostatic precipitators, flue gas desulfurization, rehabilitation investments are made in power plants that are transferred to private companies with privatization, but it seems doubtful how effective they will be. The producers who own, who buy, who purchase the thermal power plants achieved in a new two 2.5 year exemption from the parliament, but they got a big reaction from the environmentalists, and the bill received a veto. As of the end of 2019, thermal power plants that delayed environmental equipment were closed. They stopped working. Only Soma B power plant was in operation, which produced steam for the home heating in the nearby city of Soma town. During the winter, environmental equipment renovation works were carried out in 2020, but we have doubts how effective the expenditures were. It is necessary to spend 5 to 6 million US dollars for one electropilter filter renewal within the range of 150 to 200 megawatts, and at least 20 to 25 million dollars for the construction of a new flue gas desulfurization unit. We look at the expenditures, and these numbers do not reach. Inefficient equipment replacement with little expenditure is not very rational and is not effective. Extending the exemption of thermal power plants in environmental investments was not correct, in our opinion, from the very beginning. As soon as possible, investments in environmental equipment of old thermal power plants should be made. There is no longer any financing for thermal power plants in international markets. It is not possible to build a new thermal power plant so easily. Last year, we saw serious blockages in project financing. According to the latest reports of international credit rating institutions, it is very difficult to say that we are in the investment grade country position. Instead of making negative evaluations, international rating organizations they stop evaluating for difficult geographies together in such situations. Then the United States Fed interest rates are increased, and there will be 25 points increases with each 3 month renewals throughout the year. So we understand that the hot money will be absorbed from the whole world and directed to United States local market. Turkish Stream natural gas pipeline from under the Black Sea was built, but it was subsequently subjected to United States sanctions. We have neither the money nor the capacity to pay to build a new pipeline. There are news that natural gas was found in the Black Sea. It was announced that the proven reserve is 400 BCM. That's 8 years capacity enough for us. This figure has been able to meet domestic demand for a long time. It is necessary to build underwater pipelines, establish production platforms, and to make serious investments. New combined cycle power plants were commissioned. But what if, for whatever reason, Russian gas is cut off altogether? We have serious risk of gas supply. Turkish Stream came to play. It is not clear what amount will be given to Turkey. The price of Russian gas at German border has been dropped per million BTU. The increase in the amount of US shale gas and the combined cycle cheaper energy prices of German renewable energy incentives have contributed to this solution. Depending on the oil price, there is an expectation that Russian natural gas exports will generally be reduced. On our side, there is little change in price reaching the end consumer. It's a discount on the wholesale prices on purchase, but discounts on end user prices are subject to pre-selection policies. Debt restructuring of at least $50 billion will be made in our energy market. Changes in power plant ownership from private to private ownership can happen again. Our growth by the end of 2020 is expected to be most optimistic, stable, and optimistic public forecasts indexed to the elections are higher. Politicians believe that energy investments should increase more than the growth rate. It is not so easy to find revenues to cover public expenditures. Ministry and regulatory authority facilitate the commissioning of new electricity generation plants. In the past, test trial, control, temporary acceptance procedures were carried out seriously and in a long time period. Nowadays, that time period was done very quickly. Authority withdrew money from the energy market under license fees for a long time. They bought buildings and made expenses, but the market's out of stock to pay more to cover such costs. Refractory breakdowns, equipment and instrumentation and control systems. Synchronous failure sensations are reported in the cheap power plants. They're old. New power plants, circulating fluid bed designs do not work in compliance with our poor domestic lignite coal. Domestic coal, which contains a lot of water and ash, does not burn in circulating fluid bed combustion chamber. It is necessary to constantly use supplementary liquid fuel for continuous burning. Coal enters the combustion chamber as ice in winter and mud in summer due to high percent of water. With preheating at the inlet, the water in domestic coal should be reduced. Back filter, dust filters are not enough. Electrostatic precipitators, dust collectors are added. Indirect firing created pulverized coal combustion design looks more harmonious for our domestic lignite coals. Offshore Elbistan Plant A changed ownership. A new group started engineering for four new power plants, plus two new power plants. Some environmental equipment has been purchased, but it does not seem to be sufficient. Reports from third party environmental organizations around indicated that the high pollution had not improved. For such large projects, a large finance package and experienced staff are required. Their flue gas desulfurization, their electrostatic precipitators are not sufficient. Refurbishment costs are too high.